Hey everybody! So today we're going to talk some more about the Galactic Center. But before I start talking about that, I want to start out with a disclaimer. I'm sure some of y'all are tired of hearing that have watched these videos, but for anybody new watching that's never seen these before, I am not a Galactic Center expert. I have lots and lots and lots of astrological knowledge over years and years of experience, but the GC is one area where I really am just fucking with astrology. Though I will say this, at this point, I do have a decent handle on the GC. I do. I have a decent handle on it. But I still am just fucking with shit. I still am. So I don't want anybody to take what I'm about to say as absolute truth or what have you, especially this particular video, because this particular video really is more of a... Okay, so let me give you a little backstory here. So I was doing a lot of work for a client recently, a whole bunch of different things. And one of them was their solar return chart. And so I'm doing this work and I notice they have their solar return ascendant conjunct the Galactic Center within a couple degrees. And I'm like, huh, okay. This stood out to me because this client is currently, without divulging too much, this client is currently going through something like a major life event. It's a major life event. Not the kind of thing that you can keep hidden. It's something that is very front and center in their life. So this caught my attention. It also caught my attention because in my own solar return chart for this year, through my birthday in November of 2022 of this year, my solar return midheaven is conjunct the Galactic Center, like dead ass on. Now, I have also recently gone through a major life event too. I got divorced, which is a major life event. Now, the actual catalyst for the divorce, which was years and years of terrible behavior that I found out about 2 years ago. But nothing happened then. I mean, the actual event, the divorce, happened to happen this year when the solar return midheaven is conjunct the GC. So I'm thinking, okay, both me and this client are going through major life events this year. And we both have some angle conjunct the GC. Also, as you all know that have been watching these videos, I do have a lot of stuff going on with the Galactic Grand Cross, with what I'm calling the Galactic Grand Cross. I've got, you know, stuff conjuncting it, stuff squaring it, stuff opposing it, the Galactic Center. This client does have some stuff conjunct it. So they're in their own chart, the Galactic Center kind of lights stuff up and is kind of lit up. So I'm thinking about this, right? And so I start thinking, okay, well, let me pull other years. Let me pull other years in my life and let me see if those years where actual events took place, major events. I want to see if the GC happens to be on an angle. Because, and I bring up the angles because, like, okay, I know I'm talking about solar return charts, but like in solar arcs, when you look at solar arcs, those types of progressions, when the solar arc angles, like the solar arc midheaven, solar arc ascendant, solar arc descendant, solar arc IC, when they happen to conjunct natal planets or even natal angles, you actually see you'll usually see something manifest as an event, as an actual event in the person's life. That's why I'm kind of harping on the angles and noticing a trend with me and this client, and the angles being lit up by the GC kind of perhaps manifesting as actual events, major life events that happen. So I'm going back through my own solar return charts, and I noticed that in 2016, for my solar return in 2016, the solar return ascendant was conjunct the Galactic Center. I had my sun under that solar return in September of 2017. That's a major life event too. Major life event. The year that I got married, my solar return ascendant happened to be conjunct the GC2. It was a little wider out. It was like at 1 degree Capricorn, but it's still within that window of orb that I'm looking at for GC conjunctions. So it's there too. The year that my dad left, the year that I think my dad left, and I say think because I think I blocked a lot of that out. But the year that I think he left, my solar return descendant was conjunct the Galactic Center. So I'm noticing these trends of major, at least in my own life and in the life of my client. I'm noticing that there does seem to be a trend where when the solar return angles are conjunct the GC, these, at least in my case and in that of my client, seem to be years where major things happen. Major life events happen. Exactly what that event is, I think probably does play into what angle it's on, along with what the planetary ruler of that angle. You know, obviously it'll either be Saturn or Jupiter, because the GC is it's in Sagittarius, but you might have the conjunction if it's in Capricorn too, if it's in the early degrees of Capricorn. Perhaps where Saturn or Jupiter fall in the chart might give you an idea as to kind of how this manifests. But I'm not sure that it always, I'm not sure yet that it always matters. Like, okay, like the solar return, like this year, my solar return midheaven being conjunct the GC. You don't really think of the midheaven as being like relationship focused, you know, but it's definitely impacting my public presence a little bit, not in a bad way, in a good way. But so I guess don't always see it and automatically think that, like, okay, like let's say you had the solar return IC conjunct the Galactic Center. This might not always have to do with home and family strictly. It might not. It could also have to do with like the core of your being, or whatever house, you know, whatever house Jupiter and or Saturn, depending on where the conjunction is to the GC, where that falls. So I wouldn't always think of it as it always has to do with that subject of that angle, if that makes sense. I mean, it probably plays in a little bit, but I think other things play in too, you know. But I bring this up and because this is something that I cannot do myself. I have tons of research, people that have wanted to be involved in this research, tons of charts, tons of information. But to pull solar return charts, you really need to know where the person spent their last birthday, or the birthday that's coming up, where they're going to be spending it. Or if you're looking back through like a retrospective lens, you need to know where they spent those birthdays each year. And I don't know where you all spent your birthdays, the people that have wanted to be in the research, that have been part of the research. I don't know where you all spent your birthdays. So if anybody is interested in looking into this on their own, do it and let me know, seriously, because I'd be really curious to know if I'm onto something here. And the other thing that I'm not sure about is, I don't know that this will matter for everybody. It very well could. It very well could be a predictive tool for anybody and everybody. Like even people that say don't have GC conjunctions, or anything really messing with the Galactic Grand Cross. It might still hold up and be the case, right? Like if you see an angle conjunct the GC in a solar return chart, you might, regardless if they are Galactic Center inclined or not, via their natal chart, you might be able to look at that and be like, huh, well, maybe they've got some sort of event coming up this year, some sort of major life event coming up this year. Or does this really only impact people that are Galactic Center inclined? I don't know. I'll be curious to learn more about this. Now, when I say event, just to be clear, again, I am talking about major life events. I'm talking about births. I'm talking about deaths. I'm talking about marriages. I'm talking about divorces. I'm talking about those kinds of things, moving across the country, major life events. Not necessarily the catalyst. Like I said in my own example, you know, the catalyst for my divorce actually occurred 2 years ago when I found out that person I had been married to was just nothing but a fucking liar and had lied to me for years. Right? So I found this out 2 years ago, but the actual event of divorce didn't happen until this year. So if I'm going with this train of thought, I looked at that solar return from 2020, you know, when my birthday in 2019 was, then to 2020. When I found this out, there was no, the GC was not conjunct an angle. But it is this year when the actual divorce took place. So this is kind of what, I only bring my own shit into play here so you can kind of understand what I'm trying to say. Any years, if you're wanting to do this yourself, any years, go back through any years that major life events happen to you and see if the GC happens to be conjunct an angle. Now, I would still use an orb of 10 degrees applying and separating here. So anything from like 16 Sagittarius to 6 degrees Capricorn. I would go out that wide for now. I may not stay that wide, but I would go out that wide for now. But yeah, I would be curious if anybody wants to do this. Let me know. You can email me, or you don't have to leave comments here because I know big life events sometimes aren't things that we want to broadcast to everybody. But if you want to shoot me an email, shoot an email to SaturnSeason@gmail.com. Let me know. I would be curious if anybody feels like doing this, because I do wonder if I'm onto something, because if I am onto something, then this could make predicting with solar return charts, it could amplify that. Not that you really need to sit there and predict actual events happening, but if this does turn out to be the case and you're doing work for somebody that happens to have their solar return chart conjunct one of their solar return chart angles conjunct the GC, you might look at that and think, huh, they might have some kind of life event coming up this year in the solar return year. I think it's something to look at. And I know that a lot of y'all are interested in this stuff. So if you are, and I'm asking people, even if you don't have anything conjunct the GC in your natal chart and you feel like doing this, do it, because that'll help me too. Because I am curious to see if this holds up, holds up in general, but if it holds up more for people that have GC stuff, GC contacts in their natal chart, or will this hold up for people that don't too? I'm curious. I am very curious. So yeah, but, I'm going to head out now. But I'll put where you can find me in the description box below. I'll also put my email there. So if you want to get in touch, but yeah, I will see you all later.